We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
Throws toward the corner of the end zone. It is intercepted! Intercepted! The Ducks have the ball!
To the end zone! Oregon! Mariota dives! Touchdown! They hand it off straight out! C.J. Burdell wins the game for Oregon!
Inside the 10! A hat-trick, a touchdown from Justin Herbert! Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out, and that'll do it! Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon! They storm the field at Autzen!
All right, Duck fans, here we go. Welcome to the first official episode of the Ducks Rising podcast, sponsored by Backer. My name is Zachary, Neel. You know my co-host over there, the one and only Travis Rooke-Ley. Travis, we've been working towards this moment for several months now. How you doing, man?
Ready to rock and roll, all good. Football's back. Excited to get this thing going. Like you said, it's been a little while coming. Got some exciting guests, got some good plans. So just thank the listeners for joining us and building this thing together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really stoked on this project. Thank you again for everyone tuning into our first show. If you're along for the ride with us, I promise that you won't be disappointed. We've got some fun stuff coming. Just some housekeeping to start. This is the first episode of the Ducks Rising podcast. Man, let's tell the people what they can expect from us going forward. Travis, last week we unveiled the Ducks Rising podcast network as a triple header. Dive deeper into that for me, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. So, like you mentioned, we'll be going once a week together as the Ducks Rising podcast. And then we've got a couple exciting additions. So Jeff Schwartz, Duck veteran, NFL veteran, like one of the best dudes on Twitter out there. He's been doing amazing film breakdowns for us. Our first one will run tomorrow. Ducks Rising Film Room. Jeff's first episode will be live shortly after this. He's going to dive into the offensive line. Naturally makes sense. Look at our 3 incoming transfers. And Jeff will be doing that for us every week. So that's something to really look forward to as part of the network. Like his expertise, breakdown, knowledge when it comes to that will be huge. And then our third piece will be our Ducks Rising Alumni Corner, which will be interviews with former Oregon athletes, many of them who were involved with Ducks Rising themselves. Just finished wrapping up with Marcus Harper, offensive lineman on last year's team, who is part of our Ducks Rising board. He's a contributor to our community and just brings incredible insights, on the team, offensive line and more. And that'll get released later this week as well.
And this podcast network is ever growing. I hope you guys know that too. If you know Travis or I think that one word that fits both of us is ambitious. We seem to go after a lot of things. So this network may be 3-pronged at the moment, but don't be surprised to see that expand in the near future. I'll leave things at that. Today, though, we want to dive into the preseason. Oregon's Media Day was held on Monday. First practice takes place on Wednesday afternoon. We're in it, man. College football season is back. Travis, are there a more beautiful 5 words in the English language than those?
I'm as much as I love an off-season replay, that I crank up while lifting in the gym. It's nice to have the real thing back. So weather's still beautiful in Oregon. Seems like yesterday there was some good content coming out of that, and just excited for practice tomorrow and start actually being able to talk about the real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with yesterday. We're going to go over some Media Day headlines, then we're going to jump into position previews. Rather than just going through the depth chart for our previews, though, we're going to take a bit of a different approach, and we're going to ask some major questions about each position that hopefully we get the answers to over the next few months. But like I said, let's start with Media Day. I'll start with this. Travis, how excited were you to hear Dan Lanning talk about roster retention and keeping players in Eugene? Because I know you've been waiting for that specific quote for quite some time now.
Dude, the minute I saw it, I immediately had to Google how to clip a YouTube video. So I'm upstairs trying to figure out how to grab that. It took about 4 hours for me to do it, but finally grabbed it. Yeah, I mean, for us, just to be able to tie our mission at Ducks Rising to an actual tangible thing that Duck fans can talk about is obviously huge, and that retention piece. I just, beyond selfishly anything we're doing here, I think it just speaks to the program in so many ways. It speaks to the culture. It speaks to the coaching retention. It speaks to the familiar environment. I mean, it's hard to do that at any school, but it's especially hard to do that in Eugene. I mean, as much as me and you love Eugene, we grew up here, it's not for everyone. It's a long ways for a lot of people. And for kids and families to be able to send their kids here and like know that this is home and we're going to take care of you, we're going to have the resources, we're going to have the environment. I mean, that's huge. So, yeah, I loved hearing that for sure. That's clip number one for me.
Yeah, I heard him say it. I unfortunately I had a messy travel day yesterday, to say the least. I was in New York last week for a wedding and was supposed to get home on Sunday and didn't end up getting home till yesterday. So I wasn't there for Lanning's press conference. I was going to ask him something about that to get you that quote because I knew you needed it, and someone ended up doing that. So I'm happy that happened. What I want to talk about though is just kind of what we heard from players and coaches. I mean, Lanning was the only coach, but what to you was the single best thing you heard at Media Day? What kind of stood out? Were there any quotes where you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That gets me going. That gets me excited.
Well, you already stole a little bit of my thunder with my retention
Bummer.
Answer there. But I mean, I think it's just about the general way that players talk about the environment at Oregon, and also like the selflessness in which they speak with. I heard like very few, the player interviews I've heard, it's like always giving credit to the room. Always talking up like the younger dudes as like the next guys. Always talking about like how tight knit their environment feels like in the way in which they've like bought into the culture, like all the way down, like thanking the analysts, talking up guys, lower level on staff, graduate assistants and other things. So I think it's just like the full culture buy-in that feels like it's fully across the roster.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was talking to some of the other reporters leaving yesterday, and I don't mean this to come across as like a bad thing when I say it, but like this team is so media trained and buttoned up, and like I think they really believe that, and they do. Like they are bought into the culture, but like the way they present it is like, oh yeah, like I think it's a good thing that they're not giving anything, because I don't think there's much to give, much like outlandish quotes like we heard from, someone like Chris Hudson a couple of years ago, stuff like that. So, no, it's really fun to hear how bought in they are. Like someone like Bear Alexander, I asked him yesterday about what's different about this offseason than when you were with USC or Georgia. And he's like, man, just like the peace and like the joy of all of it. Like it's just so different. Everyone's just bought in. You love to hear that. One thing I loved that came out, Poncho came out and basically said, yeah, my goal is to go to the NFL after this season. Like I'm going to try and bring the Remington Trophy back here for the best center in the nation and then go to the NFL. It's like, okay, I love that. I think that's possible. I absolutely can see that happening. I think he's going to be really good, but it's kind of it's refreshing to hear something so confident from a player when a lot of what you are getting is, oh yeah, like team first and everything. Poncho came out and was like, yeah, I want this and I want to go to the NFL. Like that is my goal. And if that's going to happen, it's going to bring team success as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially for a guy, I like I mentioned, I just interviewed Marcus Harper, who talked about how Poncho's got to be that guy this year. I mean, he's the elder statesman in that room now. Your like main returning starter, and so I think for a guy like that, not only obviously striving for those individual accolades, but like I think he understands the assignment when it comes to like, I need to be that dude. We've seen so many like great centers over the last few years, obviously JPJ and the role he played in just like locking down that unit. I think as much lack of continuity gets discussed right now with the offensive line, with where other guys might fit in and portal guys brought in, but when you have like center continuity, that's huge, because we saw at the start of last season that position being in flux, the impact it had.
Well, and it's also great to see like the offensive line gets so little individual recognition. Like they are the unit, they are the rest of the team, and so when someone from the offensive line does step up and kind of take a little bit of individual recognition and say, I want this individual goal, it's like, yeah, you deserve that. Like absolutely, you need that individual goal. I love that.
Totally.
Was there anything that surprised you yesterday? Anything that you heard from a player that's like, oh, okay, yeah?
I mean, a couple Mekhi Hughes nuggets. First of all, I wasn't on site, but just looking at a couple of the videos, just the reminder of how huge that guy is. He is
big.
An absolute tank. I think just like, I'm just so excited to watch him run. But in addition to that, I thought that his note about, the guys he looks up to and guys he models his game after being Walter Payton and Bo Jackson was both, impressive and a little bit humorous, given, those guys are probably a bit before his time. But once again, just like the ambition of it, but also just like, studies the game and obviously like appreciates that, which I think is not always the case with players, of just like knowing the history of the game and the greats at that position. But, I'm so excited to watch this dude this year.
Yeah, thankful for YouTube highlights and that he can go in and see what Walter and Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson's like my favorite athlete ever. So when he said that, I was like, yes, you're already one of my favorite players.
You're bought in.
Yeah, bought in. I think for me, the one thing, I'm not going to lie, like my eyebrows raised when I was standing next to Dante Moore and he revealed that he got his speed up to 21.5 miles per hour this offseason and is looking to expand his rushing attack as a quarterback. That's intriguing because I've talked about it a lot this offseason, that how is the offense going to change this year, because there no longer was, in my mind, a mobile quarterback, whether it was Dante Moore or Austin Novosad. They are not Bo Nix or Dylan Gabriel. They're not going to run 80-yard touchdowns like Bo did against Stanford. So I didn't know how that would change the offense for Will Stein, but if Dante has gone about this and actually made his legs more powerful and useful and kind of opened up his, what he can do out of the backfield and out of the pocket, it's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, and I think you've seen it with the last few years. Like, we obviously didn't run Bo and Dylan a ton, but just the like maneuverability and escapability and the opportunity to make plays outside the pocket, avoid sacks, stuff like that. I think that's where the game has changed a little bit. It's rare you see the old like statue in the pocket anymore. And so just having the ability to move the pocket, especially early on in the year, new offensive line you're breaking in. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think he's given all the arm talent. I think naturally his athleticism gets under discussed because people think of him just like arm. But I'm with you. I mean, I didn't realize he had that kind of wiggle. And if he does, just what it opens up as the threat of blank, what that'll do for Hughes, these other runners, that can be pretty massive.
I mean, I'm just so curious to see what it looks like too, because we literally don't know what it is when he's got the ball in his hands and outside the pocket. He had negative 78 rushing yards, career rushing yards going into this year. Like, that's a lot of, I think he has a long run of 16 yards or something like that. So I don't know. I'm just very intrigued if he's that fast. And for comparison, Kenyon Sadiq is 23 miles per hour. So a mile per hour and a half slower than that. Still really fast.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, and I think just being able to like, you didn't see Dylan run often, but he ran when we needed it, or when it was late in the game, you pull that zone read for a huge first down. Moments like that, just having a guy back there with some wiggle, with some speed, who has shown that, hey, I'll take the ball and take it 15 yards if you're just going to give it to me. I think just like that dimension, no matter how often it's used, is one that just like can really supercharge an offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, let's get into our position previews. Like I said up top, we're not going to run down the depth chart and just talk about each player. I want to take a wider scoped approach to all of this. What we've done is prepare a set of questions that we're looking for each position to answer. Going into this year, it can be broad, it can be detailed, kind of, it was your decision on the questions. But going into the season, there are a lot of questions for this team to answer, so this felt appropriate. Travis, you want to start us off with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of going off of what we were just discussing right now, but for me, assuming Dante Moore is the guy, I mean, you look at the last couple of years, and I think the number one word I would use to describe our offense was like high efficiency. And I think my big question for this year is like, is that high efficiency offense going to remain intact, or will we see a little more boom or bust when it comes to a Dante Moore? And what I'm thinking there is like, we're going to push the ball down the field a little more, take more shots, but with that, we're going to hold on to the ball a little more in the pocket, maybe take a few more sacks earlier on in the year than we're used to. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, are we going to see high efficiency, take the 5 yards when it's there, or are we going to see a little more, risk reward when it comes to that position?
And branching off of that, I'm really curious to see how the Oregon fan base reacts to what we see, because I think we both agree that Will Stein gets way too much crap from the Oregon fan base for some of his play calling. I know it's been a little bit vanilla with a lot of screens and short passes. I think a lot of that had to do with what Dylan Gabriel, to his credit, was able to do. I mean, he's a smaller quarterback. I don't think he could make a lot of those over the middle throws. So I think that'll open up with Dante or Austin. I agree. We think it's going to be Dante, but if that leads to more boom or bust, like, yeah, those booms are going to be great. But if Dante throws 6, 7, 8 interceptions this year, how's the fan base going to react to that? Because that's not something we're used to seeing in Oregon. I mean, Bo Nix was, had the least spotted record, I think, of any quarterback I've ever seen before. Dylan Gabriel didn't really put the ball in harm's way. So if Dante does take those chances, sometimes it's not going to work. How are the fans going to kind of react to that? Are they going to be okay with it, knowing that it does work sometimes? But it's going to be a weird adjustment, I think, for the fan base.
Yeah, I whenever I'm thinking about this question, I think about, I was listening to some NFL guys discuss like Jaden Daniels a few years ago, and they said that when Jaden took that leap at LSU his second year, he just had to finally like trust it and be willing to just like throw the ball. And sometimes that's going to result in an interception, and you just got to live with that. But what it does for your quarterback's psyche, mentality, all that of just like trusting it and letting it rip if you see it, obviously leads to so many gains and so many positives when it comes to that position. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, if I was a betting man, I'm going to bet that we probably throw more interceptions this year than we have the last couple of years. For all the hate, Will Stein hate, like you mentioned, I mean, I think we're still going to be the offense that takes 5, 6, 7 yards when it's there. And for the record, like, I believe in that theory. I mean, what have we been top 2, 3 in offensive efficiency the last 3 years? I mean, it's hard to complain with that. But I do see value in the shots. Obviously, losing a guy like Evan Stewart, I think, is unfortunate when it comes to that, because I think that combination was going to be huge. But I'm more concerned about like Moore's presence in the pocket, kind of like we discussed earlier. Like, I want to make sure that he has that type of skill that you saw from Dylan and Bo, which I think was huge in that efficiency piece. Just as much as 5, 6, 7 yards is huge. What really kills a drive is 2nd and 20, 3rd and 18 after a sack. So, that type of just like comfort in the pocket, obviously having played the position for a long time, we'll see how quickly Moore can pick up on that.
Well, and that's where it's nice. I mean, this can be said about any position group on the roster, but having those first 4 games of the year be against teams who you should be at least double-digit favorites against, that'll give you some time to actually learn and feel out and get those jitters out before you go to Happy Valley in, I think, week 6, game 5. So, that'll be interesting. A lot of questions about the quarterback room for sure. Let's move to running backs. What I mainly want to know is, how big is this room? We know that Mekhi Hughes is going to be good. I think that we can pencil him in as probably the, at least the RB1, if not the RB1A, alongside Noah Whittington. How many more guys are going to get legitimate run here? I think Whittington will be at least your third down back. I don't know if it'll be a timeshare like they kind of did first year with Bucky Irving and him, or if it'll be more like last year with Jordan James, kind of the RB1 and Whittington the RB2. Beyond that, are we seeing a lot of Jaden Lamar? Are we seeing Dink Riggs? Are we seeing Jay Harris? Who knows? There's a lot of guys in this room I think are talented, but I don't know. I'm curious to say, if you have 30 to 35 carries per game, how are those getting split up? I'm just really curious to see how many guys they really trust here.
Yeah, and I think that level of trust and depth in your room has never been more important in college football than now. I mean, you saw Ohio State last year be able to timeshare and really have their running backs at full strength late in the year. And you contrast that even with us the last 2 years. I mean, Jordan James was banged up the whole last month of the season last year. Bucky Irving was really banged up the last month of the season 2 years ago, especially that Washington Pac-12 title game. So there is so much value in today's schedule, guys bigger, stronger, faster than ever, in having depth in that room. So to your point, I think Dink Riggs is the third guy. And I think he's playable. I think he's, Dan likes to talk about above the line. I think he's going to be above the line. And I think hopefully with that early season schedule and hopefully some games throughout the season that we can close a little sooner. I would love to go into November with that room like at its best versus like wear and tear from throughout the season really wearing on them.
I completely agree, and that was my mindset going into the spring game, that it was, Makai, it was Noah, and it was Dink. And then if we watched Jaden Lamar in the spring game, I'm like, man, this guy's really talented. I know it's a spring game. He's going against, his own team. It's a spring game, but I'm usually impressed with what I see from him. I'm just curious to see what that looks like in conference play, what that looks like in December, if we get to see it. I have no idea. Going on to receivers, this one was tough to kind of figure out a question for, but just because of the Evan Stewart injury, because of, DeCorian Moore, all that he is expected to be, what I boil it down to is who's going to be your wide receiver 2 and your wide receiver 3. I think that we both feel confident that DeCorian is going to be that guy. I'm being told by several different people that they expect him to be one of the best players, one of the best receivers in the nation as a true freshman, which is insane.
Wow.
But I believe what I hear. So beyond that, who is it? Jeremiah McClellan's great. Kyler Casper should be really good. Justice Lowe's really good. Gary Bryant, veteran. Malik Benson, veteran. You could go down the list. There's so many guys. I'm sure I'm missing 3 or 4 guys that could also be in there. I'm just curious to see who steps up, because I think we can put DeCorian in Penn at this point as going to be, one of the top guys in this room. I'm curious who's next to him.
Yeah. I think that's a great question, and the obvious one there is just trying to figure out who rises to the top when it comes to that, because I think you saw flashes from Justice last year. I know he made huge strides, and his versatility, blocking, just ultimate team guy is something I know the coaching staff really, really values. Casper obviously coming off of injury. Can this be the year Jurian Dickey puts it all together? It's never been talent for that guy. And as far as I know and can gather, he's as healthy as he's ever been. Whether that's full on health, that's another question. That'll be hopefully resolved come this fall. Malik Benson, talk about talent, every bit of talent in the world. His size speed combo is Troy Franklin level size speed combo. Once again, though, a guy who's, been at a couple different schools, a couple different situations, not as great quarterback play. Theoretically, he should be a guy who fits amazing with Dante Moore's skill set to be able to push the ball down the field. But like you said, there's just, I think for fans, it's important to realize there's so much more that goes into that position than being fast and tall and big and everything. The coaches they've proven over the years, you're not going to see the field if you don't block.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see the field if you can't run the whole route tree and know where to be. So there's just a lot of different factors that go into this that we don't see every day.
It was interesting. I was talking to Kyler yesterday at Media Day, and I asked him about Jurion. I said they've kind of been on a similar path. They've been here for a few years, a lot of expected talent, but haven't really had the opportunity to prove it yet. I asked him, I was like, what's Jurion looking like? And he gave me a very real answer. It's what? Jurion has every tool in the world. He just has to want it. He just has to want to be good. And I was like, okay. I think we all knew that, but to hear it coming from another player felt very real, and I'm very hopeful that we see that this year. He's kind of one of those players I'll believe it when I see it. He's one of the top-rated wide receivers to ever sign with the Ducks. And, sometimes that doesn't pan out, unfortunately. We all know what happened with, Justin Flo, people like that. So
yeah.
I don't want to put him in that category, but we need to see it at some point.
And I'll just add, I don't know when it's going to be, if it's this year or next, but just as much as DeCorian gets a lot of buzz, there's another true freshman, Cooper Perry, that I hear a lot about. He gets the classic white receiver label because he's a shorter-ish white guy, but that's not the type of stuff I hear about him. I just hear that dude's always open. He's a dude. He's a lot faster than people think. And I think he's going to see the field at some point sooner than most Duck fans probably realize. Whether that's this year, we'll see. But if his name's popping up, in the third quarter in a blowout early in the year, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, Kyler also talked about him. He's that guy he comes down with every ball that's thrown to him. You just throw him on a go route, throw him on fades, he's going to get the ball. So I agree. In spring ball, he was definitely a name that was coming up a lot. And there's a ton of the younger guys that, Dylan Gresham had an incredible spring game. There's a lot of players. I think this room has never been healthier, especially when you consider the incoming recruiting class, which and the addition of Gatlin Bair coming in next year. Like, the future of the wide receiver room, I think the present and the future is just so impressive.
And I think, as you'll see when we get to the next position group and already discussed the running back group and the depth there, I think you have the ability to like ease into things a little bit if you need to. I mean, I can see this team being, pound the rock a little bit, hand the ball off to those 3 running backs, use these 3 tight ends that I think are going to be really good for us. Hopefully lean on an offensive line that gels early. Like, we don't need 4 or 5 stud receivers to pop right away. So I think you've got time to figure out like who are going to be those 3, 4 trustworthy dudes to, come down with the ball when we get into Big Ten season.
Well, yeah, and it's about being multifaceted in your offense. Like, you can go into Iowa and win a game 21-16 with your ground and pound game like you did with Wisconsin last year. You can also go beat USC 48-35. I think that Daniel Lanning's always said, put the ball wherever they're going to line up and play. And I think that they have the ability to do that in any way they want to.
Yep, 100%.
All right, your tight ends.
Yeah, so I know Will Stein absolutely loves positional flexibility and like catching teams and personnel advantages and mismatches. And so what I'm thinking about is you've got Kenyon Sadiq, Jamari Johnson, Roger Salepaga, who are versatile, matchup nightmares depending on what you can catch another team in. So I'm wondering how often we're going to see, a 12 personnel, 13 personnel starting off a drive, and then all 3 of those guys can split out wide at receiver. All 3 of them can inline block like a true tight end. So I just can't wait to see how much fun Stein's going to have with this group, given the like flexibility and versatility they bring.
I agree, and I was talking to Jonathan Stewart about this. He was saying, he made a good point that this is almost like the amount of talent that they have at tight end almost puts pressure on the receivers. It's like, if someone doesn't step up, like, Will Stein's going to go into 13 personnel if he wants to. Like, he has no problem just, if he knows that the guys that can produce at the tight end position, he'll go to them. So I think that's a good thing that you've got so much talent at every position on the roster that, pressure makes diamonds, like they always say. It's gonna force everyone to step up and be the best that they can, especially at this tight end position.
Yeah, and I think you'll see. I know the staff, there's a huge priority to get Sadiq the ball, probably 8-10 more than that times a game. So whether that's backfield or different things with that. But, Dan mentioned yesterday, Roger Salepaga, I wasn't sure he was going to be healthy coming into this year, but Dan mentioned just like his ability in the red zone and going up and making plays. So, just having, once again, like 3 dudes at a position that you can count on, just like running back, I think just like the depth and flexibility it provides is really, really useful.
Yeah, I'm still like shocked that Roger is apparently healthy. Like, didn't he tear his ACL like kind of late in the season last year, and then was actually suited up for the spring game? He didn't play, but when we saw him out there in pads warming up, it's like, whoa! I thought this dude was gonna be like maybe a middle of the season guy this fall, but he seems to be healthy and ready, and I think that's huge for that room.
Yep.
All right, the big one, the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I think it's just how dialed can this group be by September 27th in Happy Valley? I mean, you saw it last year and touched on it once again to give a little plug to our interview with Marcus Harper. Like, it took a little while last year. It was not a pretty first couple games. And this year you're dealing with some of the same, working in guys, trying to figure out who the best 5 is going to be. Obviously, you have fall camp for that, and hopefully we'll stay healthy, which I know we weren't in fall camp last year, and that contributed a lot to it. But what I found interesting was he spoke to the value of just finding your 5. And once you know that 5 and get continuity with that 5, how important that is moving forward. And so I think it's like, how quickly can you find that 5? And hopefully it's before September 27th.
I also wonder how much confidence Alik Terry took last year in the ability to go several weeks without finding that 5, but still tread water and still find success. I mean, I think that it can be pretty easy for a coach to kind of crumble and be like, oh my gosh, we don't know who our players are. and try to, still establish a run game and have good pass blocking. They did great at it last year, so that gives at least me a lot of confidence to say, hey, if it's week 3 and we're still shuffling guys around on the front line, I don't expect that to happen. I think we have a good idea who the top 5, top 6 guys are at the least. But if they're in week 3 and still trying to figure that out, I don't think we'll be panicking that much because they've done it before. I think that they've shown that, hey, trust the process. They'll figure this out, and hopefully by that 5th game they'll have things going.
Yeah, and I think for as much turnover there's going to be, especially probably at tackle, like there is some interior continuity that's going to be huge. I think you obviously have Manuel Pregnon that you're bringing in, who's played a ton of football. Plug him right in at tackle, or guard. But then you have your returning Poncho at center. We talked about the value of that earlier, and then you got a bunch of people battling it out for the other likely guard position that have played a lot of football at Oregon. And I've even heard, they've got a couple of true freshmen who are making a lot of waves and standing out at that position too. So I think you have depth. It's just about figuring out who that best 5 is going to be with a couple games to figure it out for.
You've got depth, and you've also got talent at the top. We're plugging all the stuff that we're doing classic. Jeff Schwartz's breakdown of the guys, like hearing him talk about Isaiah World and Alex Harkey and kind of show the stuff that they do, like he's smarter at football than we'll ever be. And seeing the things that he sees in them and what they can do and how excited he gets about some of the things they do. It's like, all right, I can't wait to see these guys in an Oregon uniform because they're really good. And I think that with elite coaching under Terry, I think they're going to get even better. So, yeah, there's just so much talent here. And, they've got the depth. They just got to find that 5, like you said.
Totally agree. Before we move over to defense, just want to give a quick plug to one of our sponsors, Backer. For those who don't know, Backer is a apparel company founded out of Austin, Texas, but Oregon grown, like Oregon dudes who founded this company. Super, super incredible, like high-end gear that they're doing. Corey from Backer sent me out a box a couple weeks ago. Meant to wear it on the pod today, but it's too hot to rock it in the summer. So just wanted to give them a plug. They've partnered with us at Ducks Rising. The code is RisingFree. 10% of all sales proceeds, everything is coming back to Ducks Rising itself. So super cool company, bckr.com. Check them out. They're going to be sponsoring our podcast throughout the year, sponsoring a couple of our segments. They're working with a lot of Oregon athletes right now. So just a group that we feel like is super aligned with our product. Worthwhile giving them a shout.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I'm still waiting on my box, Corey. Whenever it comes,
it's coming.
I'm glad
it's coming.
Yeah, can't wait for it. That's good stuff. All right, let's get over the defense. I've got the interior defensive line. Again, there's so many ways I could have gone with this, but one guy stands out, and that's Bear Alexander. So I asked, can Bear Alexander figure it out and follow the Derek Harmon path? I mean, last year we saw with 2 guys. I mean, you had Jamari Caldwell too, but Derek Harmon was the guy that did not have much of a high NFL draft profile, came to Oregon, had an incredible year, and was a first-round pick. Bear Alexander, I think we would agree, has all the talent in the world. I mean, he is built like a prototypical interior defensive lineman. He's bounced around a lot. I mean, he transferred different high schools. He transferred from Georgia to USC to Oregon. He's still looking for that fit. Based on everything we hear from coaches, players, himself, throughout media, or throughout spring ball and media day yesterday, he seems to have, found the fit at Oregon, or at least feels very comfortable here and is loving his time here. I want to see what that looks like on the field, because we know that Dan Lanning can do a lot of stuff when it comes to defensive linemen. Tony Tuioti, Tosh Lapoy, like these are great defensive coaches in general. I want to see what they can do with Bear Alexander, because he's got all the talent in the world. He just needs to be kind of put in the right direction.
And I think that the best part of yesterday and what he said is, like, you heard it from him directly that he understands that and understands the value in that. And that's been the case all along. I know there were some Duck fans online, as there always are, questioning the addition, this guy's a locker room cancer, XYZ. And it's like, look, there's a lot more, the kid's really the one who's putting it on the line right now. There's not a lot of risk for us or for our staff. Pressure's on Bear to perform. If you can't perform in this situation, in this culture, this environment, under this staff, those coaches that you mentioned, it's a high reward, ad for us with low risk. And I personally think it's going to work out from what I've heard. So, for Bear coming here, obviously off of Georgia and USC, those schools don't just bring anyone in. So like you said, the talent is obviously there. It's just about realizing like, hey, this is my last opportunity to put it together. The blueprint is there. You saw it with Harmon. You saw it with Caldwell. You saw it with all these other guys we've had. Like, can I be that next dude in line? And if I'm not, there's 10 4-stars, 5-stars sitting behind me that are going for my spot every day. So it's pretty crazy to think that room can be in as good a shape as it's in, even though you lost 3 out of 4 guys to the NFL last year.
One being a first rounder, another being a third rounder. Like, yeah, some really good guys. Yeah. And say what you will about James Crepea, whether your opinion is good or bad of him, he brought up a really good point yesterday where, there's this disconnect in perception from fans to actual football players and coaches about Bear. There's this perception publicly that, he's a quitter on a team and a locker room cancer. But you talk to his former coaches and his former players, and they have nothing but the best things to say about him. And, they rave about him and his talent, his skill. They don't do that if a player quits on a team. Yes, he went to the transfer portal last year from USC midway through the year to find a better spot and to find a better home for himself. But there just seems to be this big disconnect. And like you said, I think he knows that. He knows what the perception is. He knows that this is his last chance to really go out in the field and prove it and kind of up that NFL draft stock. So I don't think he could be in a better situation than working with who Oregon has to work with.
And this is why you invest and believe in a culture is you feel like you can take guys from all different situations and scenarios and bring the best out of them. If you're just going to be a school and a program that needs this certain player who acts this certain way, and that's the only way we're going to get them to be their best, you're not going to be very successful. So this is why you see coach all the way down, investing in the environment that we have here. So you can bring in an Evan Stewart, which people said the exact same things about him, and a Bear Alexander, and they can thrive here. So, the proof's been in the pudding, and I'm going to expect that he's going to be the same way.
I asked Bear yesterday at Media Day, I said, what's been different about this offseason at Oregon versus past years at Georgia and USC? And he said, man, honestly and truly speaking, just the joy and the peace, the team, the connection piece of just being able to be around the guys. Seems like a guy who just, has, and I think his dad's even said this on Twitter, that he just refound his love for the game. And, when you put that, couple it with the talent that he has, a former top 50 recruit, I think that some good things can happen for sure.
Lincoln Riley just has a way of kind of sucking the joy out of life, it sounds like.
You said it, not me. You said it. All right, Edge Room, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for all the, 4- and 5-star guys like we mentioned before and all the returning production in there, we haven't really had a true speed off the edge guy since KT was here. So my question is is Blake Purchase going to be that guy? As awesome as Mateo and Tatum are, those guys are more powerful, technical rushers, but are we going to have that true speed? It's third and long off the edge guy. And I think if anyone, Purchase is my bet to be that.
I think that's a great answer. We kind of know what we've got with Mateo. We kind of know what you've got with Tatum. Those are proven products. We don't exactly know what we have with Blake Purchase. He popped a little bit as a true freshman. He had 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss in 14 games. He was a solid player as a true freshman. It's okay, this might be something. And then he played in 6 games and I think redshirted last year. I still don't really know what happened last year. I'm not sure why that was, but we know that there's talent there, and he's got that build that's a little bit different than Mateo, a little bit different than Tatum. I think if he pops up, this edge room is already among the best in the nation. If he can be that guy, that true speed guy off the edge, look out, because we already know that this group is going to get their sacks with Tatum and Mateo. If you can add Blake in that too, and then of course you look down the line, Elijah. There's a lot of guys that I think can be really good. I still can't wait to see Toby Hastrup. I know we didn't get to see him in spring. I just can't wait to see that guy. He's already got like a mythical presence in Oregon lore. It's going to be exciting. But I agree with you. Blake is the one to watch here because he can be that X factor.
Yeah, I think you saw him in the spring game. Obviously, spotty offensive line play with teams being split up, lack of continuity and things. But he was unblockable in the spring game. I know last year, I think there were some different factors that went into play, but ultimately the way it worked out with keeping him on the roster and class balance wise, being able to have him redshirt, ultimately things ended up in a great place. So he's one that I think just especially probably early on in the year with Mateo demanding a lot of attention and some of these interior guys coming back, and Amari Washington, I know who's going to be demanding multiple blockers, for a large part of the time. I think Blake's going to have opportunities and a lot of one-on-ones, and I think he can be that guy that really takes this unit to the next level.
He's also a perfect example of roster retention. He's someone that on any other program that, where the culture is not sound, like you could easily see him hitting the transfer portal after redshirting as a sophomore after having a decent true freshman year. They found a way to keep him. That's impressive. That's important, and we'll see what comes from it this year.
It wasn't for a lack of effort from other schools.
We'll
just say that.
I'm sure. All right, you have the linebackers. I'm curious about this one.
Yeah, obviously, I think many Oregon fans are in the same boat as me. Feel good about, obviously, bringing Bryce Betcher back is huge. Devin Jackson stepped up a ton last year to be that second guy. I think those are probably pretty obvious starters to start the year. I think we've heard great things when it comes to Jerry Mixon, third year in the program. I think that he's going to be above that line and give good reps at that position. But I think for me, it's like, who's that fourth guy going to be? I think you need four in today's day and age. And we've got these three freshmen who are coming off of redshirt years, Dylan Williams, Braden Platt, Kamar Matuidi, and which of those three is going to be the guy that steps up to be that fourth dude? And maybe it's multiple and you got multiple above the line, but we need one of them at a minimum.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I had a question off this as well, but it's kind of bigger picture, and I'll admit it sounds a little bit negative. I don't mean it that way, but my question is, what was the reason for Dan Lanning to show so much confidence in this room after the spring game? Because Dan Lanning, as we know, is a person who doesn't say too much to the media. He doesn't paint himself in a corner very often, and he kind of did with this linebacker room. There was questions about whether they would go into the transfer portal and try and add someone. He said, "No, we are not adding a linebacker in this room. I like what we have." Okay, I believe him. I absolutely think that they can develop and these guys can be, like you said, above the line. I just want to see what he sees, and I can't wait to see what he sees, because for him to kind of put his foot down and say, no, these are the guys, that's a big statement. And if they don't back it up, then it'll come on him. But, there's not been many times before where he goes out on a limb and isn't proven right. So I'm just very curious to see what he saw and why there's so much confidence there, because I think they can do that. I just want to see it.
Yeah, I was listening to I think it was Isaac and Suk or someone up in the Portland area, and they were talking after Dan Lanning's Big Ten Media Day, like how little he leads on about the roster. And I remember the comment you were talking about, my eyes perking up, being like, oh, wow, that's very unlike Dan. So I think that, and you couple that with the fact that I think it's been pretty widely reported now that Devin Jackson's been like banged up and didn't participate a lot of the spring and summer. So I think still they didn't do anything. And that, know, and you hear a lot, I think that that's a whole roster thing that gives me a lot of peace of mind going into this year. Is this staff has not shown they're afraid to go get somebody if they need it. You've seen that at quarterback, you've seen that at running back, you've seen that at a lot of other positions. Like if they feel like they need another dude in that room, they'll get it to compete at the highest level. So linebacker, obviously at quarterback, and these other spots you see this year, like they trust and rolling with what they got, and they're the ones who see him every day. So I think it's got to give you peace of mind as a Duck fan and knowing like these rooms are in a good spot if they're not bringing in anyone else.
I think that's a great point. Like they've said openly to us, like, we're going to go get the guy, and then we're going to get the guy to come try and replace him and be better. And we want that competition to make everyone better. that's why this linebacker thing just kind of went contrary to all of that. That's why it stood out so much in my mind that it would have been so easy to see them go in, like, because Devin was banged up. You kind of didn't know what you had behind him, at least from an outside perspective. It would have been very easy to believe that they would go get some lower level linebacker that could stand up and have a great season. But they trust what they have. I'm excited to see why. I really can't wait.
Yep.
All right, let's go to cornerbacks. I've got cornerback and safety to close this out. For cornerbacks, I want to know how much difference, like, the length in this room is going to make this year. Last year, I mean, you lose your 3 starters from last year. I think they had a combined height of, like, maybe 20 feet. They were all, like, 5'10", 5'11" guys. So you go into this year, and I wrote down some of the heights and names of guys. Actually, a lot of those are safeties, but Iffy's 6'1", Dalen Austin 6'1", Kingston Lopa 6'5", Sione 6'4", Peyton Woodyard 6'2", Dakota Fields 6'2", Jaleel Florence I think is 6 foot 6'1". Like, there's so much length in this room that we haven't seen it in Oregon recently before, at least. I want to know what a difference that makes when you're going up against guys like Jeremiah Smith and you've got these tall, lengthy Winter Wonders receivers to cover. You got to be talented still, obviously, but how much of a difference does that length make? Because we know that Jabbar Muhammad is about as talented as they come at the cornerback position. But, if he had a few more inches on him, how much of a difference would have that made last year? I don't know. I'm just curious to see it.
Yeah, I mean, you just see a total transformation, like, in the athletic profile that's being brought in at both those positions. But if we're to focus specifically at cornerback, I mean, I know that, it's pretty easy to chalk up. We've lost 3 games in the past 2 years. And you could chalk all 3 of them up to some significant, like, personnel mismatches when it comes to slot, out wide, at the safety position. So I think that's one of those. You got to feel good. The staff obviously identified it early on in what they were bringing in. And I think that this is the year they finally flipped that room enough to feel comfortable with just rolling who's in there. You obviously brought in a couple guys, a couple transfers in, Theron Johnson, Dylan Thieneman. But other than that, it's time for the young dudes to get rolling. And, I know for me personally, I'm just so excited to watch Iffy play. That's a guy who, from the minute he stepped on campus, I've been, hearing things about him, being told to watch out for this guy, watch out for this guy. So I just can't wait to see this group, like, grow as the season goes.
And then speaking of the young dudes, I mean, looking at the true freshmen in the recruiting class too. I mean, Dorian Bruce 6 foot, Finney 6'2", Offord 6'1", McNutt 6 foot, Jet Washington, incoming player 6'5". Like, they've got an idea of what they want this secondary to look like. They're going all the way into it. This will be the first year where we kind of get a sense of what this might look like in the future. And all these guys are so young that I think the secondary play could be really, really elite going forward.
Yeah, and you never know how quickly a guy's going to pick up a playbook or, fit in scheme-wise or different things like that. But, man, a guy like Neem offered what he brings just in terms of talent and raw ability to that room is unlike many players we've had back there. So I'd be surprised if that guy's not seeing a lot of the field this year.
Yeah. Quick note on him. I asked Mekhi Hughes, obviously his older brother, yesterday about Naeem, and he said he was like really proud as a brother to see him picking up the playbook and kind of getting things out and just learning the way of college football. I just asked him offhand, I was like, who's going to have the better Oregon legacy when all's said and done? And he was very quick. It's like, oh, him by far. It's like, okay,
I still remember the last couple hours of that recruitment back in December and all the different reporting around it. But, you think about how big of a win that was when you realized it was him plus Mekhi.
And over Ohio State.
Yeah, so
because Mekhi said he was going wherever.
That's just crazy to think about. So,
yeah.
It's good little 24-hour stretch there.
Yeah, some big dominoes definitely fell. All right, our last one here. I had the safety room. I had 2, but I settled on this one. How good can Dylan Thieneman be? Just point blank. I think that he is projected to be one of, if not the best safety that Oregon has had in quite some time, probably since Javon Holland. How good is that, though? He's up there preseason, considered not on the same tier with Caleb Downs, but around there. You know, he is one of the best safeties in the nation. My other question is who steps up around him. Well, I kind of think like who. That's a stupid question. Obviously, I know that, but who needs to step up around him? You know, if Dylan Thieneman can be as good as we expect him to be and be this total game wrecker, we saw him have a great career at Purdue where I don't think there was many guys next to him playing elite ball. So that's all due respect to Purdue. But I don't know. The things that we've heard about him, his talent, his work ethic, I think he's going to be an incredible player to watch. I'm just kind of curious to see, is he one of those players that spends, like a Christian Gonzalez, that spends 1 year at Oregon and just like already builds a legacy? Is that the type of thing that we're talking about?
Unfortunately for us moving forward, probably yes in my mind, but yeah. I think that's because he's going to have a hell of a year. I mean, I think there's two pieces to it. There's obviously the talent and the ability, which is unquestioned. I mean, you see him pretty high in mocks and different things, and you know, just the production he's had, obviously, just the experience, all of that he brings. But I think the impact on part two of your question is equally as big. I mean, I can't count how many players I've heard this offseason reference how hard of a worker he is, like first one in, studying film, everything. And so I think for a young group, when you got guys like Lopa and Woodyard and Flowers and McNutt, what a perfect role model. I mean, what a perfect guy to like learn the game, to, you know, have his big brother show you the ropes. So I think as excited as I am for the talent that he brings, which is massive, I'm equally excited about just the impact and like legacy he can have on that like next group of Oregon safeties.
I remember throughout spring ball, after like day 2, it became pretty obvious that like everyone was going to have something to say about this guy. So I kept a note sheet just tracking like quotes from everyone about what they said about Dylan Thieneman. Ended up being like 13 to 15 guys going extensively into like what he means to the team and what he's doing and how impressive it is. And that's, you know, that's the start of legacy stuff. I just, you know, I feel like we've said it about 1 million people so far today, but I cannot wait to see him on the field. Him maybe more than most people, just because what we saw at Purdue, what he was able to do at a smaller school, but against the same level of competition, was just really impressive. So when you get him in that Oregon green, I think it's going to be really fun to watch.
Totally. And I mean, just to quickly touch on your second question, I think Duck fans should look out for Kingston Lopa. I think that beyond all the raw athletic ability, the size, speed, 6'5", like the fact that they were willing to trust him to go out and cover Tyler Warren in the Big Ten title game as a true freshman, that speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like there's so much more than skills and ability that go into being ready to play. And you're putting that guy out as a true freshman to guard one of the best players in the sport. I mean, that tells you the way they think about him, his preparation, the way he approaches the game, studies the game, knows where to be. Like all that goes into playing that early. So I think that speaks incredibly well for his future. And I think, you know, as of today, he'd be my prediction to be that second guy.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, there are definitely a lot of big questions to answer about this team going into the season. But let's start to wrap it up there. I want to remind you guys that if you're listening to this, check out Jeff Schwartz Ducks Rising Film Room, which will drop soon. I think it's dropping probably in a couple hours once this podcast is published. He broke down, like Travis said earlier, the tape from Oregon's 3 offensive line transfers, Isaiah World, Alex Harkey, and Emmanuel Pregnon. Travis, we've both had a look at this so far. What stood out to you?
I mean, Jeff is just the best at doing this. I think that for someone like me who, you know, can watch a Duck replay and kind of understand what this lineman should have done at this spot. You know, Jeff's taught me more just through his like Twitter videos than anything I knew before. So just having him a part of the team and go in depth on these, you know, 3 integral guys and talk through their strengths and weaknesses, help us know what to look for when we're watching on Saturdays. But also just, I mean, it got me fired up to watch these guys. I mean, yeah. If Jeff Schwartz is this high on Isaiah World, I feel like I have to, you know, buy into it as well. How can I not? He knows a lot more than I do. So we're just so excited to have Jeff part of the team. And this is the type of thing that, like, I think just makes this network and this production stand out, is having, you know, that type of guy, you know, breaking down the stuff we love.
I think one thing that I really love too is Jeff was not afraid to be critical of some things too. Like he said some things about Emmanuel Pregnon and Isaiah where I was like, no, this is bad. Like he needs to improve this. Like he thinks he will under Alik Terry because they've got great coaching. But I love that it was not all sunshine because, it's easy for us in the Ducks media world to talk endlessly about how good the Ducks are. They don't make it that hard either. So for him to say like, hey, no, this needs to improve right here. This needs to get much better. I think it's just very respectable. It adds weight to all of the good things that he has to say too.
1,000%. I mean, Jeff's going to be with us, and he's not just an offensive line dude. So definitely for members and subscribers, like, let us know what you're looking for preseason. He's planning to do 3 or 4 more of these before the season cooks up. So we're just excited about having him a part of the team, and the expertise he brings is bar none.
You also have the alumni corner this week. You sat down with Marcus Harper. How did that go?
Great chat with Marcus. We're just so excited to have him a part of the Ducks Rising team. He's going to be releasing his first article on Thursday. His whole written series is going to be kind of like an athlete's perspective into the season. So this first piece is going to look at fall camp and what fall camp is like from a player perspective. So just having a guy a year out from the system, we talked through the offensive line, we talked through who to expect to make a jump this year, we talked through what it takes to gel and come together as a unit. So Marcus's perspective is incredible, and you guys can all expect that probably in the next day or so. We'll release that as well.
I love that. It's like a Ducks Rising Players Tribune. That's great.
We'll get there.
Someday. Another reminder that while this podcast and the separate videos are free right now, once conference play begins, the videos are going to be for subscribers only. So if you're not hooked up with Ducks Rising just yet, now's the time. Head over to ducksrising.com, sign up. Remember that 97% of all proceeds are going back to the athlete in the form of NIL. So it truly is your best way to help contribute to the team, help Dan Lanning bring a championship to Eugene. Our plan is to come back next week and continue our preview of the season. Videos with Jeff and the Alumni Corner will continue to churn out. Those 2 are going out tomorrow, or today as you're listening to this. We got another set out next week as well. Travis, do you have anything to add before we leave?
Yeah, just to reiterate your point about Ducks Rising, I know obviously I've been over here for about a year now. Actually, my anniversary at Ducks Rising is coming up, and we're just so excited about the progress that we've made, bringing in more and more fans by the day, but just educating Oregon fans about what NIL is, the importance of it. I think the tendency can be hey, Uncle Phil's got it. And, as generous and amazing as that guy has been for the program, we need to build this thing as a community and, as a group. And so we feel like what we're offering is an unprecedented combo where fans can help, contribute towards the acquisition, the retention of talent like we talked about, but you're also getting a great thing out of it. You're going to have access to all this. You have access to our community. We feel like our intel when it comes to fall camp, recruiting, all of that is unparalleled in the community, given the connection we have to the staff and the university. So try us out today. We appreciate it, and just know your dollars are going towards a great spot, as Zach said.
Yep, absolutely. You can check us out on YouTube, find the Ducks Rising podcast on Apple or Spotify, and if you'd be so kind, give us a rating and review. That really helps us build this thing. We want to get it a lot bigger than it is right now. You can follow me on social media at Zachary C. Neel. You can follow Travis at Travis Rooke-Ley. But most importantly, go over to Lockerverse, check out Ducks Rising. Subscribe now, support the program. Let's rise together. We'll see you next week.